Welcome back to Political Misfits on Radio Sputnik, where we bring you news, politics, and culture without the red and blue treatment. I'm Bob Schlehuber here with Michelle Whitty. Time for our weekly sports segment, Foul Play, bringing you the best and, sadly, the worst of sports around the world.
I like the worst.
The worst. This week, we're joined by our good friend Michael Sampson, who is part of the national leadership of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and co-host of Redspin Sports. Michael, welcome to Foul Play.
Hey, how you doing? How's everybody doing today?
We're doing all right. We're just outside of the militarized green zone, I guess some people had called it here in Washington.
I think we should be calling it the blue zone.
The blue zone.
Yeah.
Get it? Because the Democrats are back in power. Brand new day in America. Michael, you have Joe Biden at the White House, which will allow for apolitical sports players to feel better about coming to the White House after winning championships again. And we have news that WNBA team, the Atlanta Dream, are close to being sold, which would leave now former U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler unassociated with the team. So, hey, that seems all right, right?
I mean, well, I think what we saw was the last 4 years of kind of a mass formation of uniting against Trump. And I think, you had some sports teams that didn't want to show up to D.C. in protest of Trump, and I guess now that Biden's elected, they're going to feel more comfortable doing that, I guess. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Do you think athletes, will they come back? Oh, finally a Democrat, Joe Biden, everything's normal again in America. Sports athletes will return to the White House? Or do you think there is an increased consciousness amongst athletes that they say, wait a second, regardless of political party, neither of these parties in Washington, D.C., especially when it comes to policing. Joe Biden's going to trip over his own feet within give him, I don't know, when's his first speech? Is it later on today? His second speech after the speech he gave after being sworn in. Let him talk after there's a national shooting. And I think a lot of these athletes, especially the NBA and the WNBA, are going to say, yeah, no, we're going to make a lot of noise regardless who the president is. Or sadly, do you think they're going to go back to, Democrats, liberalism, here again, we can return regardless of what's taking place?
I think it'll be the former initially. I think it's going to be, now that a Democrat's back in office, you'll see more athletes coming back. I think you may see kind of some sporadic kind of, right-wing activism among the players, who may not show up, here or there, isolated or so. But overall, I think there's going to be kind of normalization, at least when it comes to sports, going to the White House. At least initially, but I think that's what kind of the grassroots movement is going to have to play into it, to really make sure that, that the agenda for, fighting against police crimes is out there, and it puts pressure on President Biden and Congress, and hopefully out of that, we'll see another spark. Like, I don't think there's going to be a reversal on athletes using that platform to put forth like their views on racism and whatnot. I think that's irreversible.
I'm curious, Michael, big question here, since you tried to pass me the Kool-Aid last night. When the Jacksonville Jaguars win the Super Bowl in 2023, how are you going to feel about them visiting the White House? Are you going to join Joe Biden and Urban Meyers up on the platform, lifting the trophy?
I doubt I will. But I know I'll be personally excited, as a Jaguar fan, I guess, from Jacksonville, Jacksonville's constantly, pooted on by the rest of the nation. So maybe that's a sense of, maybe that's what sports does for a lot of folks in different cities, it gives them a sense of some type of pride they may have. So I definitely will be happy with that. I highly doubt I'll be visiting D.C., as a part of a parade of sorts.
They're not going to invite you. Don't worry.
They definitely won't. No. I'm the last person they'll invite. So.
On the topic, Michael, of sports and protest, I don't know that we are going to have athletes coming back and feeling, as Bob suggested, comfortable now that there is a Democrat in the White House. I think there is going to be pressure, more pressure to give them time. If there is one thing that I think the Democrats do well, it is playing up this idea that they are the adults in the room and that you might have these childish desires to see murderous police officers punished or to, make enough money to be able to pay your rent. But, they're the ones who really know how the world works and they know how things get done. And it just happens that it takes 55 years or something to get a $15 minimum wage, and anything you want beyond that, beyond, what they decide are the sort of perimeters of your own ambition, is foolish. Right. And so best let them just get along to handling things. And so I don't even know that you're going to have, I think there will be, we saw Obama come out and try and, talk. Obama comes out and talks to LeBron James and talks to these NBA players who were talking about a boycott or a strike. And then the next thing we know, all that energy sort of dissipates into getting out the vote. And so I don't know that it's going to be as much acquiescence and complacency as it is going to be pressure to keep quiet, pressure to keep going, pressure to, let the grown-ups do their job. And I think that'll be unfortunate, but that would be my prediction.
Well, what I will say is on the situation with the NBA strike, that was really pretty much led by the Milwaukee Bucks, who had who were the first team to really not play that day because, the Jacob Blake was shot literally like an hour from where they practiced. So they were the ones that started it, and it got the other team to do a one-day kind of strike of sorts. Now, I highly doubted the momentum was there for all the NBA players to go on strike to demand justice for Jacob Blake in the same way that like regular working class unions, aren't really striking for Black lives. I mean, I think that consciousness just isn't there yet. I think that incident, what it did was it started a spark, and of course, Obama is the master, fluffer, he's the guy that calms, demilitanizes, if that's a word.
Defangs, yeah.
And that's what he does. But I think, what you can't subtract is the experience of people understanding that, rebellions get the good, and I think another way to look at it, I can definitely see what you're saying in regards to, a return to so-called normalization of, Black people getting murdered and Democrats, just lying and not doing anything about it. What I will say is I think one thing that we do know is that the cops will continue to kill people. White supremacists, vigilantism and killings will continue to exist. So if anything, I think the movement feels that, we elected whoever is in office. It didn't matter who was in that seat. It didn't matter if it was Biden, if it was Bernie, or whomever. They wanted Trump out because he represented, unrestrained, cop violence. Not that the Democrats hadn't done that themselves or allowed it, but he was a supporter of it. So I think that energy, like you said, was translated into the vote. But I do think there's a lot more pressure on the Democrats to actually do something because, like I said, the cops are going to kill somebody, and then they're going to be looking at Biden in the White House, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, and people aren't dumb to it. I mean, people know his history with the crime bill. They've heard him say the last year here, it's not less money, it's more money for training and reforms, and just shoot him in the leg. So I think people are well aware that he by no means was the choice. It was the choice not to have Donald Trump return to office that led to Joe Biden. People were not saying, yes, this guy Joe Biden is here for us and we're not going to continue to protest because we think we're on this path to progress. Michael, let's talk about some other sports news out there. We'll stick with the NBA. You sent me the story last night and again, it's just like tragic laughter here. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver is discussing the possibility of having some of their players receive the COVID-19 vaccine to educate and influence the public. Silver says there has been an enormous resistance, especially in the African-American community. Adam Silver, a skinny, bald, white guy. Adam Silver says there's been enormous resistance, especially in the African-American community, something he sees must change for the pandemic to end. Public health experts, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, have said that leaders with large platforms such as athletes can set an example by getting the vaccine. I mean, Michael, two things here. Pretty funny and cynical attempt at these rich folks to jump the line under this absurd PR stunt. And I'm pointing the finger at Adam Silver and the owners, not the players. And second, again, not a critique of the athlete, but this is a critique of society and culture that the validators, those who would validate this idea that they should take the vaccine, people should take a vaccine, are sports athletes and not people of, I don't know, like doctors or educators or any other range of profession. But again, it's the athlete is the only leader or icon within the Black community. And that obviously has been narrowed for certain reasons by the white culture of this country?
Well, I think there's a lot at play with what Adam Silver said. I think there's a lot of it kind of, definitely white supremacist logic that kind of says that it's African Americans, they're the ones that have a problem believing in vaccines when, you literally had a capital insurrection of thousands of, mostly white people who don't believe in vaccines and wasn't wearing masks. I think that's kind of overplayed. Let's say who's the most revered person in the black community, and living, and it's probably Obama. He was the president for 8 years, first black president. He took a vaccine. So if let's just say that you believe that African Americans don't believe in vaccines, or you're saying that we're not taking it because of rightful distrust in the government historically with how vaccines and experimentation and stuff. Let's just say you buy that. Then if Obama takes the vaccine and people still aren't believing in taking the vaccine, what makes you think
LeBron took it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to, but I kind of reject that off face value. I mean, I think mass culture and, it wasn't, it hasn't been prominent African-American leaders and people in the hood who've been saying, you have people in the hood who say COVID is whatever, not a real thing. But, when you have the president of the United States saying that, and you have governors saying that, there's an institutional problem at play, and so I just, first of all, athletes shouldn't get preference over frontline people day to day who have to put themselves out there, like the workers who everyday healthcare workers and stuff who put themselves out on the front lines. Athletes aren't special. They shouldn't be getting priority. But, I think that whole logic, it should just be rejected. Essentially, they want athletes to get the vaccine so they can keep them out there to make money for the billionaires, that's why. So you don't have to cower and, we just want to help spread awareness in the black community. I think that's kind of BS.
Yeah. I mean, there was something weird that also happened too, that like on the other side of things, the fact that LA is under just crisis mode, and yet you have the Lakers and Clippers playing each other at the LA Stadium at the Staples Center. It blows my mind there, because then it tells your anti-maxers or anti-vaxxers that, like, wait a second, how are these people able to come together and meet each other when we're told do not leave your home under any circumstances? Yet the people who own basketball teams, they get to have their players go out there and play. And even this limited number of having fans in the stadium, people say, well, wait a second, why can they gather in the stadiums or gather out on the streets if they're outside? Isn't that safe? And so it's interesting, as sports have restarted at the demand of these wealthy billionaire owners, it's also sent mixed messages around, wait, is COVID that serious? Can we gather? And it's given people that are anti-vaxxers or anti-maskers just another thing to point to and say, but wait, why is this happening in our society when I'm being told all of these other things? I thought that was also interesting.
No, 100%. I mean, it shows a clear kind of hypocrisy in which, you have people saying everyone needs to, I'm in Florida, so it's been pretty much wild, wild west since the beginning. There's been no restrictions. I mean, there's no restaurant, cap restrictions. There's been sporting events, for the past couple months, so that's a different experience. But especially in a place like LA where you have, they're telling people you can't go out, no outdoor dining and stuff like that, yet you can still play sports and have those type of gatherings. I mean, it kind of, I think people are realize there's like a hierarchy, and what makes money for folks. And like the NBA, NFL, those sports leagues makes a lot of money for some very, in the ruling class and some very important people who need to make a lot of money with a lot of TV, like billions of dollars worth of TV contracts they have to fulfill.
Yeah. And oftentimes the sport team, the owning of the sports teams, their second income, right? Like they're always rich from oil deals or from communications elsewhere. Yeah. Michael, I wanted to ask you, with a few minutes left here, regarding the NFL and concussions. I wanted to talk a little bit about Kansas City quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who was diagnosed with a concussion on Sunday and is dealing with a foot injury from their game against the Cleveland Browns. The Kansas City team will play the Buffalo Bills this upcoming Sunday in the AFC Championship game. When an NFL player is concussed, they enter into what is called the NFL's concussion protocol process. The process consists of 5 steps, going from basically, are you alive, to basic balance checks, to full practice, and then clearance to play. What I found really interesting this weekend, it's I think maybe a watershed moment for the league is that major sports outlets are reporting on the concussion and the protocol process. There is actually in-depth reporting on the impact of the concussion and what happens after a player is concussed. What is alarming, though, is at the same time as these major outlets are calling out the concussion and explaining to us what concussions are, they also seem to be cheering Mahomes on through the process, basically reporting he's past step 1, he's past step 2, will he get to step 3, maybe step 4, and rooting on this young man who just suffered a major brain injury, saying that you should go back out less than 7 days after you had a concussion and go out and play, which I think is not the best idea. And at least he should just take off this game, roll the dice, and give himself 2-3 weeks to take off before the Super Bowl. I don't know, Michael, what did you make of this conversation about the concussions in the media? And are we at a new point when it comes to brain injuries and openly talking about it in sports media?
I mean, I think definitely compared to 10 years ago, when players, former and current players say that, getting a concussion, they would just keep playing through. I know Brett Favre, who's a QB for the Packers, talked about it a couple of days ago, how many concussions he actually played on. And back in, his day, which was not that far away, he was talking about how, normally it's something that what Pat Mahomes went through, he would keep playing through it already. I mean, it's a very, McKee's more aggressive sport that highlights, being a man and being tough and going through all that. So I think the concussion protocol stuff is a positive thing. However, I mean, at the end of it, you still have that bottom line of profit and, what's entertainment and, is it more exciting for folks to see Pat Mahomes at QB, in the AFC Championship game or Chad Henne, So, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him. Like I know they said there's an independent doctor who's going to look at it and so forth. I mean, I don't necessarily think when there's billions involved, there's any type of independence for anybody, you know. So there's going to be an immense amount of pressure to make sure he's clear for Sunday. But I'm sure, and I think a lot of times the issue also is, it's with the institution, 100%, like 99% of it, but the athlete himself, not really looking out for their best interests, kind of being programmed into, I have to do this for the team and I have to do this for, for the fans and stuff. He's putting himself under a lot of pressure to play, and I mean, I think that's one of those, I think we have to keep being vigilant. I think it's a good thing that like media is reporting on the concussion protocol and making sure that, and making aware of it because, the NFL, because of the NFL is left to their own vices,
Yeah. I mean, those stories from Brett Favre talking about his concussions and then talking about it later in his life after he's left the league of going and watching his daughter play sports and not even remembering going to watch her play. I mean, the long-term brain injuries and the damage and the symptoms from these concussions. I mean, it stays with you the rest of your life to be a hero in the moment. Michael Sampson, co-host of Redspin Sports, thanks for being with us today. Before you get out of here, who do you have in the Super Bowl?
I am anti Tom Brady.
Okay.
Due to his appearances training with the IDF.
Fair enough.
I'm going for the Chiefs and the Packers. The Packers are.
All right.
No one cares about the Packers.
That
no one
is
cares.
A lie.
No one. As a former Chicago Bears fan.
That is now the closest I've come to swearing on the show, Bob. That is a damn lie.
Michael Sampson, thanks for hanging out with us this week in our weekly sports segment, Foul Play, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
All right, you're listening to Political Misfits on Radio Sputnik. We're live in D.C., and we're back after this.
Welcome back to Political Misfits on Radio Sputnik, where we bring you news, politics, and culture, even on Inauguration Day, even after Bob has maligned the Green Bay Packers. Unbelievable, really. A really tragic end to what had been a pretty good show so far, Bob.
It's been a great day here in America.
Chris Wallace, best inauguration address he's ever heard, which I don't know, man.
Crazy.
Maybe he was listening to a different one. Bob, we got all the way through the show without even talking about any of Trump's last-minute pardons.
Can we just, real quick before we get to the pardons, I do just have to laugh right now that Joe Biden is currently reviewing troops, and it looks like we got a time machine and brought back troops from the 17, 18, 1900s all dressed up in historical outfits here to review the troops of all time.
He has to assess their readiness. Part of the thing you do.
Yeah, kind of also creepy that they assess the readiness to move National Guardsmen from around the country here in days. I'm sure they're going to keep the playbook for that. So if they ever have to, for whatever reason, do this again, they'll make it a much smoother process.
At least they're getting a lot of hot meals out there on
the
street.
A lot of hot meals. Thank you, Jose Andres, because the people that are sleeping in tents and out on the streets, they don't need those meals.
Also Spike Mendelson, not only Jose Andres. Lots of blame to go around.
Spike Mendelson and random Capitol Hill residents going out there to feed the troops. Thank you. Any favorite Trump pardons, Michelle, as we head out of here?
I mean, Bannon, just because it reminded everybody that what Bannon was actually sunk for was this like really grubby, petty fraud scheme to get people to, wasn't it getting people to contribute money to build the wall and then just pocketing it? I mean, yeah, that's...
Did they ever pay us, the Mexicans? Did we ever get that check, Mr. Trump? Did they ever?
No, I don't think so. I'm still waiting.
Awkward.
I have to email somebody. Yeah, that was a good one. You got a favorite there, Bob? Lil Wayne, Kodak Black?
I guess not Kodak. Kodak Black is a horrible human being.
Lil Wayne was funny.
He's made like good albums. People like him. He's got some cultural significance. He's done something. Kodak Black is just a creepy young dude who got way too much money and then started riding around with guns for no reason. But great, he's pardoned.
Is it me, or is there a notable number of people sort of involved in and significant to the world of hip hop among Trump's pardons?
Well, those two.
Yeah, but there was also there's also the dude who was like co-founder of Rock Records.
Yeah, one of Snoop Dogg's buddies.
Yeah, like there was a couple. Desiree Perez, wasn't Desiree Perez also?
Kwame Kilpatrick, the former mayor of Detroit, was pardoned. We also have Shalom Weiss, Anthony Lewandowski, a former Google engineer who pleaded guilty to stealing secret technology related to self-driving cars from the company before becoming the head of Uber's rival unit. Take that, Uber.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sean Blackman's going to love that.
Yeah.
Anything that slows down the self-driving car phenomenon. All right.
Yeah. We also had, I was torturing you about this privately, but we can probably repeat it publicly. This is the first of many. We had economist Paul Krugman tweeting that today is the first day of the rest of America's life, which, I mean, I guess you could say every day, but
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be people warming these up for the next several hours. Bob.
Can't wait. I'm just going to go home. I'm going to take a quick nap, and then I can't wait to turn on me some Tom Hanks.
Oh, you want to hear something else
Tom Hanks.
Really gross, Bob?
Sure.
We've got a Washington Post story today about this healthcare CEO who owned a chain of nursing homes. He just left with a $5.2 million retention bonus. While he owned that chain, 2,800 residents died of COVID. So, but as long as you keep costs down and run things efficiently, who cares if every old person in your home dies of this virus, right? $5 million out the door. Thank you very much. Great job. Great job saving us money. So,
speaking of the virus, first U.S. coronavirus case reported 1 year ago today. Happy anniversary, everyone.
What a beautiful day. Yeah.
New data shows Americans are dying faster of COVID-19 than U.S. soldiers during World War II. In related news there, the Department of Veterans Affairs says about 400,000 Americans died fighting the Second World War. According to new data from Johns Hopkins University, over 400,000 Americans have already died of COVID-19 in less than a quarter of that time.
Yep. And in a final indignity, Bob.
I'm going to get a final one after.
For President Trump. No, this is going to be the last one. The rest of his life is going to be very dignified.
Okay.
SAG-AFTRA.
Oh, that was mine. I was going to take that. Go for it. All right. Close us out.
They're going to have a hearing to talk about expelling Trump from their union. This is the Screen Actors Guild, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. They announced yesterday, right? Yesterday? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yeah. That the board had overwhelmingly voted to move forward with a hearing to investigate a claim that Trump has violated the union's constitution. That it is, I guess, about instigating this riot in the Capitol a couple weeks ago. It's the union president, Gabrielle Carteris. Oh, whoa. She's the president, Gabrielle Carteris of 90210. She claims Trump is to blame for the protest at the Capitol and, they put journalists and members of the union covering the event in danger. And so now I guess their group's disciplinary committee can decide to fine, censor, or reprimand Trump, but Carteris is asking Trump to be expelled. So, man, still the teacher's pet, even after all these years, even after leaving Beverly Hills High School.
Who would have thought this whole time Donald Trump was part of a union? Would have never have guessed it.
Yeah, that's funny.
The union man, no longer president. Well, welcome to the Biden administration. We'll talk more about Joe Biden's presidency tomorrow when we return on Political Misfits. Big thank you to our guests today, David Swanson, Dr. Jack Rasmus, Maru, BL Pondo, Sarah Dede, and Michael Sampson. Big thank you, as always, to Ryan, Dimitri, Andre, and Saul, and the entire Sputnik News team for keeping us going during the pandemic. Today's episode was produced by the very talented Ebony McMorris. And on behalf of Michelle Witte and myself, Bob Schlehuber, thank you for listening. Now get back to organizing.